Good morning, LinkedIn. Happy Friday. Welcome to Let's Build Properties in HubSpot with Matthew Ruxton. How you doing, man?
Doing good, Chris. How are you?
I am doing great. Really
One
relying
week
on
to inbound.
relying on my HubSpot energy to carry me through the day after only a couple hours of sleep. But luckily
Same.
this week,
I took my wife to the airport at 3 a.m. So like I
there you
feel that
go.
too. We're in the
Yeah.
same boat. We're in the
Yeah,
same
well,
boat.
luckily, we've been bombarded with updates, literally, this week, in all shapes and sizes, to the point where I feel the need to apologize to you as as you brought up what you wanted to talk about, and I basically was like elitist, like data model guy. Yeah, like there's no way we're not talking about object library. Like, what is wrong with you? And then I see your post yesterday, and I was like, oh, that's what that does. We can delete properties now. That's cool. We should talk about that. So kudos to you, sir. True
Oh,
admin, finding the diamonds in the rough.
diamond
Uh,
in the rough,
let's
as
get
the
into
kids would
it.
say.
When you
Yeah.
first saw that, it sounded like you might have had some influence on it coming. I do want to highlight though, like
So
how small it must be. It's literally the smallest amount of text I've seen in a product update pane, right? It's like a couple hundred words, maybe, but barely takes up
it's
half the
not
page,
it's not a lot.
right?
Um, it is it is just it's more images than it is text. Let's put it that way. Um, and I feel very strongly that, and I say like when I say that, I like thanks to the one person, like I've mentioned to several researchers, and several of them have said to me we're working on something. So like I'm not taking full, I will take zero credit for it. I maybe was just the person that said it loudest and most recently. But for me, I it has been something that's been a bane in my existence for a long time and recently. So like for it to come out like this is huge. um, but then on top of that, and I didn't realize at the time, is on top of that, they also released quick filter updates to index pages yesterday, which is like we're just having this whole like revitalization of index pages, which I love because I think we talked about this last week, which is for a long time HubSpot has been very much like what can we do for the end user, like that the individual contributor, what can we do for like the C-suite, but what about the people in the middle? And this is the stuff for the people in the middle. This is for your middle managers, people managing a team of 3 or 4 people, like who need to see more than just a record view. And the fact that we're getting all these little all these little changes right before inbound is wild to me. Like I was team like we're gonna get this gonna be like dry. The beta desert is gonna be dry the next 2 weeks because inbound's coming around the corner. But no, they just keep throwing. Like, they've launched like five. There's 5 betas yesterday, and then there was like 6 betas on the 11th, and there was like 4 betas on the 10th. I'm like,
Yeah,
it's just been nonstop this week with stuff. But I will say that like index pages are my people's best. The people I work with the most, they're their best friend, and like anything that can make their life easier there is a huge improvement. So being able to, as an admin, just take things off of index pages, just that was just like I'm good. HubSpot, don't deliver anything else the rest of the year. You've met my needs, and I don't
right.
need anything else
And that's
anymore.
where you kind of laugh when you see the like, why does this matter? And it's like better
Oh
control.
yeah,
It's like it should say like you can delete your properties now. Like that's why it
you can
matters.
actually like do data quality and make sure that you can actually like remove things from the system. Um, if they can also fix the issue with category and tickets, which is a whole other time tangent I will not go into tonight because that's been a thing, that would be great. But like this is definitely an improvement that we
Yeah.
can get to a place where it's like because that's the thing is like I have always been someone that has said give your users the power to customize their HubSpot experience within guardrails. And views and index pages are one of those things where it's like it's not a report, although still have users who call them reports. I'm like, they're not reports, guys. These aren't reports. But if you're having a team that's coming from spreadsheets, this is the index pages are like the easiest thing for them to transition to because it's
Yep.
just a spreadsheet essentially. Um, please don't use it as a marketing term, but I mean, like it is the most familiar experience for them in HubSpot if they're coming from like I've been living in spreadsheets my entire life. So I think giving them that power to like, hey, you can do a quick filter. Hey, you can customize how this is set up. You can make it the way you want it to be. You can make it private. You can share it with your team. Like that ability to give them. I've always wanted to be someone that's like, yeah, I want you guys to have the flexibility to go build your own views because you all work differently. Like that's the beauty of HubSpot is like we all have the same data, but how you view it needs to be how you work best. So being able to now say, cool, you can put all these properties in here, and then if I delete a property because we maybe put a better property in place, or like the best example I can give is a lot of people start with like category in tickets, and they realize very quickly that that's not a long-term sustainable thing, especially if you have multiple pipelines. I'm always familiar with like have categories for each pipeline because in that way it's a lot easier to track your categories over time. But it makes the drop-down list just a little bit smaller. The problem we had is people would always they would still have category in their view and they're like, yeah, it's there. And I'm like, yeah, but you're not using it anymore. And they're like, yeah, but I don't want to take it out. And I'm like, right. Stop using it. Stop it. So now we can take it out and now they don't use it anymore. And I think that is a huge thing because I've lived that life of going into logging in. If you don't have enterprise, if you are a professional person, my pain always is when I work with a client is professional only. Professional is a great platform. Star is a great platform. But man, once you've tasted login as a user in enterprise, it's very hard to not have that power back. And I will say that it's really relieving when you can log in as a user and remove things for them. But when you have someone using a property and they're using it in 25 views, and you have to play the game of whose view it is and log into 7 different accounts, it's not fun. This is something I feel like we've needed for a long time, and it's here. And I'm so happy because now I don't have to log in as a user to change a view. I don't have to also just delete a view and hope they don't notice. I've definitely done that before. We'll just make this one go away and hope that nobody submits a ticket saying, where'd my view go? I'm like, oh, I don't know. We'll just create a new one for you. Because that's definitely happened. Or clone a view so that you can edit it and then delete their, it's a much better experience for admins. And it's cementing my feeling that we're going to hear a lot more about the admin experience at Inbound and respecting, there's been a big push over the last couple of years to really develop the HubSpot administrator as a role, as a career path. And I think we're going to see it. HubSpot finally kind of, not that they haven't acknowledged it, but are finally starting to do things with that subset of customer in mind. And that is huge. It's huge for a customer-centered platform that is supposed to be the middle of your business, is respecting that someone needs control of this and starting to build the tool with that in mind.
Yeah. No, and I think all these building blocks and loose ends that are being tied up and are super important. And as you're saying that, the admin role, the fact that it's even a focus at all now is a great thing. But now, because the platform moves so fast, really the only thing an admin can control is awareness of what their platform is doing at any given moment.
Yeah.
And in those situations where you don't know which views are where the thing is, and then you got to try and explain to your team something, but you can't explain it to them. You're like, why are you logging in as me? There's no way to get around that. And then so in my mind, I'm like, they probably got to fix a bunch of this stuff. So when they deliver the new AI stuff that we're expecting, anything that might go wrong, admins need to be able to fix immediately and be aware of immediately.
100%.
Right. So if you guys have no idea what we're talking about, well, you're lucky, but I'm going to share my screen real quick. And this is you might not, because you're the only admin and you're the only one that creates views and you haven't worked with multiple teams. So you've never run into this, and you can be as kind of messy as you want with the properties. And, so often it's let's start with a single text field and then we'll figure out what the options will be later. And then you go to change that. And there's one random view using that and won't let you delete it. And so frustrating.
Or worse, it's a user that's deactivated. That was the worst because you have to go reactivate them in order to go and take it out. I was like, no.
Yes, agreed. So I thought I just had it up here. Did I activate it? No, it's still in beta, right?
Yeah, it's index. Just type in index, it'll come up. There's been so many index betas now that you actually have to like search for it. There you go. Admins editing filters for
See, it
unowned
was
index
so
views.
long ago. Of course, it's not going to be
Yeah,
like on the first page. Like,
that's what I mean. People don't realize, and I will say this, like people, we talk a lot about, betas are amazing and like you should join betas. And I always say like with the preemptive of like enabling betas in your portal can be dangerous, especially if you have users that, sail with your own caution. Like if you have users that are going to be respective to it, do it. But I will say that like watch out for things that are live that never went to beta, because that has happened very recently. There's a lot of small improvements that will show up if you like filter by like the live filter on the left side. Like there's stuff that gets launched, never goes to beta and goes straight to live. And you'll be like, wait, this changed? And I'll actually go back to product updates and be like, oh wait, yeah, they did launch this like 2 weeks ago. And it's like that is the thing. Like we talk all the time about like the betas and the betas. The betas are great, but like stuff goes to live a lot that doesn't even go to beta because it's just small incremental stuff. Like this is something honestly could have gone live without a beta, in my opinion, and I would have been even more happy.
yeah.
But it's
that's fair. So they're trying
wild.
to help with that, with new to you, right?
It doesn't work.
It creates
it doesn't work for me.
The same kind of FOMO that you get on LinkedIn, where you just save a bunch of posts that you never end up seeing anyways, because there's no way you can possibly engage in the moment that you see it. But if you click off, it's gone forever. And now that happens here too. It's like if I don't
I just
look at what all
it's
these
a daily. I come here now daily. Like that's the only way I can keep on top of it. Is like I just come and check it daily. I share. There's a lot of them I will share with my team. There's a lot that I won't share with my team just because I'm like, this is the context I'm going to have to give my team to help them understand this is not worth the effort for me. There's ones that I will share. Whenever it's something I think an end user will appreciate, I'm like, hey, and like an example of that with index views is this new, the second beta that launched yesterday, which is the quick filters for index pages. Because I literally have that one, which is something I think we've all asked for forever. If you've ever built,
we can put whatever we want up there now.
As someone who has built a custom object in the UI, and when you build a custom object in the UI, you have to pick a primary and a secondary property. And for some reason, someone at HubSpot decided that secondary property can only be single line text or a number.
Stop it! I hate that so much.
you know what I'm talking about. I have a property called ZZZZ. Don't use this property. But it shows up at the top of every custom object because it's the default secondary product, and you can't get rid of it. And it's like, and we're like, what's this format? I'm like, just don't use it. Just don't use it. It's not there. Like I've hidden it. I made it view only, but it's still there in the quick filters. And now we have the ability to take it away. I'm so happy because I'm like a lot of people. We do one of the custom objects that we have has several date properties on it, and it's not uncommon for like our CSMs or our operations leaders to be like, I want to filter by, like, create date's great, but it's not really relevant to me when I'm running a services business. I care about like deliverable dates. I want to look at like, when does this need to be done by? What is my product launch date? What is my training dates? Like, what is training in the next 14 days? Like, let me filter by that at the top. And having to go to advanced filters is fine, but having the ability to be able to just quickly set that is a huge advantage.
Right. Oh, this aligns with like, you start thinking about I promise I won't try to connect everything to the objects library, but when you introduce like a new set of objects, it's like they're accepting the fact that like not only in the story you like try to think about where they're going or why they're doing the things that they're doing. Like instead of fixing all of the custom objects like idiosyncrasies, like they just adding some objects that they know people use and doing it in a better way, so it automatically takes advantage of all the native features and we get to standardization more quickly. But that probably introduces like the guaranteed need that at free level people will be using objects that are not the four horsemen, and they need this kind of flexibility if they're going to be using other objects. So that's super cool. Yeah. And I was also going to show, if we go, so what we were talking about before with the other update, by the way, object library, in case you haven't seen it, We'll go to properties.
What's that, Chris? I feel like we've not talked about object library at all yet.
Oh, here's one that just came in because of the object library.
Yeah.
But let's see. I don't really have any views set up, so I'm afraid this is gonna just end horribly. That's probably not. But if we go to, let's say we were going to like made some updated deals, right? And we've got used in 2, used in 1, right? And we would try to, these are HubSpot properties, but these used ins would be like reports or views or workflows or whatever. And everything was easy to fix except for the views, in my opinion. And that's where it's like, now we can solve for the views problem without having to log in as somebody else and them get notified. I'm pretty sure every time you do that. And then you have to
it's every time.
And then they're like,
and you can't turn that notification off.
I don't even know what you're talking about anyways. So sure. It's like, okay, glad we had to have this conversation.
I have always stipulated whenever we have new employees start, at every time I've worked at, and they'll usually at some point they schedule a meeting with me because they want to learn HubSpot. And I'll say, yeah, here's how to get in touch with me, here's how to work things. And I'm like, I always preface now, there may be a time where you get an email that says a super admin has logged in as you. Please don't think that I spend my day logging in as users. I have much more productive things to do. But if it happens, it's generally going to be a positive thing for you, not a negative thing. So don't freak out. I'm like, because you're like, oh, are you doing it to figure out if I'm doing something wrong? I'm like, no, I'm literally doing it because I'm trying to figure out if I just made a change and you could see it.
Yeah.
That's generally the reason I log in as a user 9 times out of 10. Or it was when I was changing views. I'm like, I'm going to log in as you, so don't be upset. So I feel like this just removes that sort of stigma of why are you logging in as me? And I'm like, it's not people always assume oh God, I'm getting fired. I'm like, no. First of all, I can see all your data. I don't need to log in as you to figure out that you exported something. Which, by the way, now we have export controls. Yay. But that's another beta that came out, I think, actually early this week or late last week, which gives you the ability to control who can export. Before we could control who could export, yes or no. Now you can control who can export and how much they can export, who can approve an export. So we put this subcategory of exports in place where you can be this person can export, but so-and-so has to approve it, which I think is huge, especially in larger companies. But my favorite beta this week was the thing we talked about last week, which is, man, HubSpot seems to really not want us to make today's date properties. And they've confirmed this by creating essentially a new calculation that does not require you to have today's date anymore. And this came out on September 11th, which is create time since and time until properties. It is a private beta, which annoys me just a tad because I really would like to be in it right now, but I have to request access. But essentially, it's going to allow you to count up from a date to the current date and time, or to a date in the future, and essentially removes the need. I think for most people, it's going to remove the need to have today's date as a property. You're not going to have a today's date property. You're not going to have a workflow that's updating today's date property. We have companies like Happily brought out TikTok today that purport a today's date property for you. I think this is a good example of HubSpot solving for this problem in a way none of us really. We've all argued, we get today's date property, but essentially figured a way to do it without having to make that property, and that's huge.
So this one is.
Yeah, you're gonna have to scroll, but you have to scroll a little bit because it's in the past. It was yesterday, so you're gonna have to go a little bit further back. I want to do that thing to you where it hides things.
I'm in the beta. It should be create something.
Yeah, create time since. There you go.
Okay, so
it's one of those gosh darn private betas where you have to request access.
I'm gonna get rid of this X. And here's the 11th. Not there.
You go to the next page.
11th ends here. Not here. But
this page hurts my head sometimes.
Do this. See, they're sneaking it in on us. It's not even the numbers that we're thinking. They're just ramming this stuff in there all over this.
You get an update.
It's kind of feels like smoke and mirrors a bit. Oh, just pay attention to this new to you. It'll be fine. It'll be fine. Don't worry about the other stuff. And
I do think they do a little bit, just like people don't get overwhelmed, but
right. Well, it's a challenge when everybody's moving so fast. So I know that a lot of them know about these challenges, but at the end of the day, we're ending up with the best platform ever created. So we'll take it. But I think that I'm hopeful, right? Since a lot of these updates, there's a lot of quality of life stuff happening right now.
yes,
Instead of like huge, like brand new functionality, right? And it's almost like they've got to take care of this stuff in order to have more people focusing on this. Is my hope, like assumption with no special information, but like the workspaces, the big bang stuff, like all the AI agents. There's gonna be a lot of feedback now as they push that stuff hard. They're gonna have to do. There's gonna be probably the same number of updates, but just like hyper focused on those workspaces. And those are the things that when they do come out, it's like, oh, they really missed the mark, or it was half baked, or whatever. I always see them using like the feedback loop is just, it's unbelievable, like how quickly
it's
they're able
unmatched.
to.
I don't think I've worked with any software company. In fact, like I'll even expand this. I don't think I've worked with any company, period, as a user or consumer that has such a strong feedback loop. It really, like, because people all the time say, like, I always make the joke that customer support can be like, you can set yourself apart in almost any industry just by having decent customer support, because the bar for customer support has been set so low for so long that like just having decent customer support is a value add. But companies still choose to not invest in it because they're like, it's money. And I think that, or it's a cost center, which is my least favorite thing is like, it's a cost center. I'm like, how is it keeping your existing customers a cost center? Anyway, I think that like HubSpot has done such a good job, and as they have grown and as they've scaled over the last couple of years, at least, I was always like, it's going to get like it's going to drop off. Like, it's going to get meh, but it is continuing to be strong. It's continuing to be the focus of what they do. Every time, and I've met with a couple of UX researchers in the past week or so, past couple of weeks, and like they always, even if you're talking to them about something completely random. I was talking to someone the other day about login, actually, about just the login process. And that's now out in beta too, which is you can now filter your SSO logins to be just Google or just Microsoft or just Apple, or only approve those certain login methods. I asked him about something. I was like, hey, can I ask you about this thing? And he's like, that's not me, but I will take your feedback and give it to that person and get them in touch with you. And now I'm in touch with a different product leader about a different thing, because they want to hear what we as users want out of the tool. And they're doing such a good job of marrying user requests with fundamental functionality. And it's not becoming, because it's very easy, I think, for HubSpot to say, like, let's just do everything the users want, which is, if you, as consultants, we know if we did everything the users want, they'd have a half-baked CRM, because they don't know how the CRM is supposed to work. They'll just keep asking you for things. That's how you end up with the 500 properties. They are doing a really good job of marrying like our requests with like, okay, I hear your request for today's date, and I raise you a calculated property that does it for you. And, like we've all been saying, we got today's date, we need today's date, we need today's date to be property. And it's become clearly like, that's not feasible, or it's not going to work, or it's going to overburden the system. But let's build something like that in a different way. And that's how we have things like this time until property, which allows you to essentially do what you were going to do with today's date with one property versus a property in a workflow, which is what or two properties in a workflow, which is what we're doing before. So I think that's huge in that sense, that we're moving to this model of just like consistent feedback from customers driving decision making
once
in a
you
beneficial
understand
way.
like the strategy that is, okay, every other company is updating once or twice a year. We're going to update constantly. And that has created a lot of differentiation. And they've been able to, get to this point very quickly. Another one that is drawing my attention from the 12.
Is it merges with property control?
Merges with property control. You can now select which properties will be retained on the final record when merging duplicate records, giving you unprecedented control over your data consolidation process.
Can I just say, it feels, and maybe it's because I just watched an Apple keynote and I just placed my order for my iPhone 16 today. The whoever writes the copyright, I don't know who the copywriter for updates is. I don't know if it's like the product managers or if it's like there's someone who's just doing. I mean, I feel like that's what probably there's someone who just does this now at this point. But man, they've been channeling their inner Tim Cook, because like I can see the presentation of like them standing outside in Boston, you know, talking about how unprecedented control that you have as an administrator. Like that's the inbound I want. Like I want the keynote to feel like an Apple keynote.
Oh yeah. Oh, you know that.
I want Kevin Petrie to be standing in the middle of San Francisco telling me about a new feature. Like that's where I think we're reaching at this point.
Yeah. I mean, I would be upset if like 98% of this was not AI. Like these are the things like they should definitely, there's got to be an agent. Like here's the product update agent team. Like just
it's actually
put in what you want.
Oh man. It's just Dharmesh.
So,
this is what Dharmesh does all day. He's just writing product updates.
Yeah. Customers should navigate to the Manage Duplicates tool. So I'm gonna go. Oh, how do you like these this flyout menu now?
So I've had it. A spoiler, I've had it for a little longer than it was available, and it caught me off guard initially. But I think it's a little bit better. It's a little less cluttered. I didn't like, as someone who has particularly kept the sidebar collapsed, because you can have the sidebar open. A lot of people don't realize that. And I do take credit for this because when I was in the original group, it wasn't an option, and I argued so often for it. It was like, no, we have to save screen real estate somewhere. I like that the flyout's a bit more condensed. I think it's a little less chaotic. I mean, isn't it crazy to think that was like 6 months ago that they launched this new UI and we've all just adopted it? And I said that up front, like people are going to be like mad initially and they're just going to get over it, which is exactly what happened.
Oh, wow.
Oh, yeah.
This is
now, my question is, why can't it look like this when a user merges on a record? Because that is the thing that like this UI on a record view would be amazing. It's only on, according to the beta, it's only on in here. It's only in Ops Hub. It's only a feature of Ops Hub. Because I think all the time of if I'm going to merge tickets or if I'm merging, which is a common reason because people send in multiple emails at the same thing. Yeah, like you have this view, which is okay. But a lot of times I get tickets all the time from my team, which is like, hey, I want to merge this, but I'm not sure. I'm uncomfortable with merge because like I don't want to lose data. And I'm like, you have to explain how merging works, and you go through that conversation.
Yeah.
Like being able to say, like, no, these properties I want this one and 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 this one. I think here would be amazing.
Yeah. No, this is where like they need that help like more than the admin, I would say. Like hopefully this is just a test with admins who have knowledge of what should and shouldn't be happening, but that's the kind of thing that needs to be done at the user level if you're trying to use
I feel like they will do it
any kind of efficiency at all, right? Because they're the people that are going to know. It's like, oh, this is a duplicate, but this is not.
Show me all the properties, right? Like show me all the properties that conflict, and then ask me to pick the conflict, which conflict I want to resolve. Now, I could argue there's probably an AI model eventually that could get us there, which is like it'll learn over time. Oh, you're consistently keeping this one over this one. I'm going to suggest that. But it's great. What's that? Man, new to you stresses me out because it's like not even in date order. Like topping there was like September 4th.
Because that was new to you.
But you know,
like, it's like, can't you do anything right, HubSpot? Gosh. Now I do see create time on
here. We are complaining about an extremely minor feature.
I know.
I don't nitpick about HubSpot.
Okay, now this is the one I was looking for. It changed order on me, but here we are. Required association labels for manual record creation.
So I have to ask this, but like I thought this was already available. Maybe it was a private beta? Because like I had this already, I thought, but maybe I just didn't understand it.
Yeah, I hadn't seen it.
I mean, 'cause I have a good example of this. So, like we do, I can get like a good
This
version
is
of when
way
would you win. And I
easier.
think it's like, well, yeah, like if you've seen the changes they've done to like associations now, the only thing I need them to do is let me pick my associations based off of pipeline. That is like the one ask I have, because I have pipelines where I don't need to associate companies, but I want companies associated on my other pipelines, and you can't make it required on a pipeline. There's no conditional logic on associations. You have to do it for all your ticket pipelines. And as a company that currently uses like we have 15 pipelines and we have 11 of 15 used right now for different teams. Like I think that's something that's like the one thing I wish we could do, which is like say like on this pipeline, I need you to associate this object and this object and this object, but on this one, I need you to associate this one and this one, for the data quality aspect of it. But yeah, being able to say like, hey, if you have an association labeled like primary company or deal decision maker or point of contact for implementation or whatever your business model looks like, I think that's awesome to have that there.
Yeah, that's where like the feedback loop is only as good as the user base. And when the user base doesn't take advantage of pipelines because they've been told not to for many years by everyone to try and minimize, like, why are you using two? Like, well, there's lots of reasons to use the second pipeline. And that's the superpower. Like, if we know what we're doing and then the second pipeline makes sense, it's one of the most powerful features in the platform. But just
it's
like custom
okay to have more than one
objects,
pipeline.
right? Just like custom objects, it's like, don't make this unless it's a last resort or you're a terrible admin. So then nobody uses it and we don't fix any of the problems. And so, yeah, the feedback loop is only as good as your user base. So hopefully that stuff will get solved for. We are definitely seeing this 4-pointed AI star in a lot more places.
I call it the black hole star because it's being pulled in.
I like just thought of black hole star. What I was gonna show,
I will say that
is like, this is the part that I hope there are situations, and I guess we should be solving this with automation anyways, but like this part, like,
oh my god,
this is
I
the
am
number one
scared,
reason
and I will
why
say this.
I don't label stuff that I would like to label because I get to this part and I'm just like, it's too much. Please.
There is no way, if we remove the fact there's a workflow automation for it, there is no way to mass associate labels in HubSpot today.
Yeah.
I've tried. There's no way to do it. You have to do it on an individual label, which sucks. Like I feel it's like, hey, all these companies associate all these labels, like make them the primary. And there is workflow actions for it, but I am scared to use them. Maybe that's what our next Friday should be. We should just do like, let's build a workflow about association labels, because I'm scared to use them because I'm like, I don't want to break something. And like the workflow action is kind of scary because like you have to figure out how are you going to, like, it sounds great in practice. Like, yeah, we should be able to associate stuff automatically. And then you go try to do it. And you're like, well, what am I going to use? Like the thing, the workflow action is based off of matching properties. So it's like, I'm going to match this. And if this matches this, then associate it with this. I think it's with associate it is one option, then add a label as a second option. But I think you can also like do both in one go.
There's 4.
That is something I think is super powerful. I'm scared shitless to use it.
Right.
Because I'm like, I don't know what's going to happen.
That's why I'm excited.
Like how best to enroll it. Something you can enroll on association labels.
Yeah. Because there's a lot of fear related to that functionality. Meanwhile, they did keep developing it into your face. And you cannot avoid it. And it actually is going to make a lot of dreams come true once people start using it properly. That's one thing I was excited about the object library. It's like the templates are now creating them for you in a very applied sort of way. Because even just for me, seeing like the one-to-many being created, usually I'm just like, all right, many to many, I don't care. I'll just figure this out. But seeing them, it's going to put it in front of a lot more people. And that's where it's like the huge impact of that update is bringing all those things, not necessarily the templates, but bringing this whole new world of stuff into free. Like,
Yeah,
it's just, it is a new world.
it is making me less scared about the transition to the new pricing model as well.
Right.
Because it's becoming very clear they're trying to not like. I think there was a lot of concerns that a lot of stuff was going to get gated behind Pro and Enterprise, and it seems like they're just like, frankly, and maybe that's the big news at Inbound. I think that could be it. It could be this idea of like, we are trying to make data quality something you can do from day one. On a starter plan, you can be in charge of your data quality. And if that's the case, I am 100% here for it, because I think these are not things that should be gated because you paid more money. They should be something that is like intrinsically how you operate your CRM and how you run your CRM is understanding these things. So I think that might be the play at Inbound. We'll know by next week what it is.
Will.
But
it's gonna be interesting to see.
I'm hopeful,
because there's lots of things like that with AI and with Ops Hub that some, like the power and like the way that people are starting to say, like, Ops Hub should be a requirement because it really unlocks the portal for you. And just like all this AI stuff, how deep is it going to go? But then we know like in the free level now you're limited to 5 users and we're CRM seats. So it would be nice to have a little more clarity around that stuff. But I think they're going to pile on a little bit more before we get that clarity, and then we'll all work together to understand all the separate use cases, because that's the only way you can give any advice related to seats pricing right now is on a case-by-case basis. And maybe this time next year we'll have a good grasp, and HubSpot will have a good grasp too, because it's really hard.
Well, I think it's like AI is. I think there's an expectation that AI is going to come in and fix everything, and I'm like, if we've learned anything from AI, is that AI is nowhere near where it needs to be today. But it needs to learn, and it needs to be used to get better. And I think like as we start to adopt it a little bit more and introduce it to things and have it start accessing your data, like another, I totally forgot about this product update, which came on the 9th, which is AI assisted insights for reports. Now, when you pull a report up, if you pull up the report modal, like you see on a dashboard, you click into report, it will now tell you data, like it'll essentially do a consultant's job for them, because it'll say like, oh, this person has too many tickets. This person has not enough tickets. Like that's an example I used the other day. Ironically, to one of my managers, I was like, yeah, where it's like, hey, this person's overworked. Like that was one of the insights I gave back, was like, you have an average of like 26 tickets per person, but these 2 people have the most, and they have the more than like 25% more than anyone else in the team. And then I sent it to the manager because like her name came up as like has the least amount of work, and I'm like, clearly you need more tickets, and she laughed at me because like she's not supposed to be in tickets anyway, so like that's why she has the least amount of tickets. But the insights can be really powerful, I think, for people to understand like, how does my data? I'm collecting all this data. How am I going to use it to further my business? And that's like this is how AI will help us. It's going to help people who don't have strong. Not necessarily strong teams, but like people who don't have maybe like startups who don't have a revenue operations team of 7 people. It's going to help like teams like that where it's 1 person, and even then it might be fractionally split across the org between teams. Like they're going to be able to see this data and actually use it, versus just making charts and pretty graphs and hoping that they can infer from it.
Yeah, it's going to be harder not to use it, at least. But it's another notch on the belt of like, this is why you should not keep using the spreadsheet. This is another thing that there's zero chance that the Excel spreadsheet that is saved on your local drive will be able to give you insights automatically like this. So yeah, it's exciting times. Salim mentioned all this is just a sneak peek, and these betas are just sprinkles. So Inbound's going to be nuts. It's feeling that way. I've started reducing the number of sessions I'm signed up for, just to get realistic about what I'm able
There
to
is
do.
not enough
Need some
time
space.
I'm like, there's not enough time. I learned last year, and like, I'm bummed I'm not going this year, but I really wish that they recorded more sessions. And I understand like if they did it like in sort of paywall way where it's like you can't, if you attend, then you can get the recording versus if you don't attend. But I will say that like I started, I think the second day I started recording sessions on my phone, like not like videoing them, but I just recorded the audio and would get the slide decks out of the Inbound app, which is like a pro tip. If you don't know that, like
that's huge.
Get the slide decks out of the Inbound app. Because once the Inbound app turns off, you can't get them again. But you can pull those out and then you can go back and actually spend the time and go back and review, because like it's just so much information taken at once. And I think that like I will say like in the future, I would love to go to Inbound with a group of people and be like, we're going to divide and conquer. Because like there's and then at the end you come back and like let's all sit down in a hotel lobby and like just like strategize for 20 minutes or an hour or 3 hours over appetizers and like
as long as you have that part. Otherwise, just everybody's overwhelmed. You get back home and
everyone's overwhelmed. You have to like who
like,
learned
what did we conquer?
Yeah,
we did not conquer anything. But
no, we've learned a whole bunch of new things we want to do and have no idea how we're going to do
it. Go for it, Mr. Ruxton. You're the admin. Get it all done. We count on you. Anyways, it is going to be a fun week. These are some, these are all been exciting updates this week. But as you think about all those properties you've been putting on the shelf, I will maintain them someday. Once I figure out where all these views exist and where all the properties exist, find some of those and just find one today. Activate that beta. Go archive it or delete it or whatever. Just get
all have one. There's at least one that you can tell me right now.
All right.
There's one. It's every admin has at least one. They know. They're like, I need to get rid of this, and I can't get rid of it because I can't get it out of like 27 views.
So do the
Make
work.
that your win today.
Find those opportunities and let's grow. Have a great weekend, everybody.
Take care, everyone.